Hello students, I welcome all the learners from class 10 to my YouTube channel, Learn English with me. I will be discussing chapter 4, A Question of Trust by Victor Canning from your NCERT supplementary book, Footprints Without Feet. So, let's start with the summary of the chapter. These two are the lead characters of the chapter, Horace Danby and Lady in Red Dress. Both are thieves and the entire story revolves around them. Everyone thought that Horace Danby was a good and honest citizen. He was about 50 years old and unmarried. He lived with a housekeeper who kept worrying over his health as he suffered from hay fever in summers. Hay fever is an acute allergy in which one constantly sneezes and coughs. Horace is an avid reader and loves to read expensive books. He was running a successful business of making logs and was fortunate enough to have two helpers with him. He was a good and respectable person, but not completely honest. He used to rob the riches and buy the expensive books for himself. Author also tells us that 15 years ago, Horace had been to a prison due to his habit of robbing people. It was ritual for him to rob a safe every year. Each year, he would plan his robbery carefully and steal enough to last for 12 months. And the cycle continues. He thought this year's robbery would be as successful as previous ones. So for 2 weeks, he had been studying the house at Shotover Grange, the owner of which lived in London and left 2 servants for taking care of the house. There were about £15,000 worth of jewels in the safe, which was enough to make him happy for another year. He finally had got the chance to rob the house because the servants had gone out for a movie. He put on a pair of gloves and opened the door. After entering the house, Horace saw a small dog lying, which could be the hindrance for him, but he managed to calm the dog as well. Horace started sneezing as there was a great ball of flowers on the table that triggered his hay fever. The safe was not going to be hard to open. After all, he had been dealing with locks and safes all his life. He then started sneezing loudly as the smell of the flowers was still troubling him. He then heard a voice from the doorway asking him what it was, a cold or hay fever. He unknowingly replied to the voice, "Hay fever," and sneezed again. The voice went on advising him to see the doctor if he was serious about his work. Horace then realized that the voice was kind, but it had firmness in it. He saw the woman was standing in the doorway, and Sherry, the dog, was so comfortable with her presence. She was young, pretty, and was dressed in red. They talked to each other for quite some time. Horace tried to act smart, but the lady was smarter. She threatened him to telephone the police and got him arrested. The idea of getting arrested brought him goosebumps, and that's when he realized to do away with the situation as soon as possible. He promised her not to rob ever and begged her to let him go, in exchange of which he was ready to do anything. He then offered her a cigarette after taking his gloves off in order to persuade her. After realizing Horace's condition of being frightened, she cooked a story of forgetting the combination of the safe so that she could get the jewelry out. Horace had opened the safe within an hour, given her the jewels, and gone happily away. He could not keep his promise for long, and just after 2 days he was all set to rob another house. But he did not know that he was about to fall in another trouble. By noon, a policeman had arrested him for the jewel robbery at Shotover Grange. His fingerprints were all over the room as he had opened the safe without gloves. And no one believed him when he said that the wife of the owner of the house had asked him to open the safe for her. The wife of the owner was a woman of 60 who had grey hair and had sharp voice. After listening to Horace, she said that the story was unbelievable and he was sent to the prison again. Horace is now the assistant librarian in the prison. He often thinks of the charming, clever young lady who was in the same profession as he was and who tricked him. He gets very angry when anyone talks about honor among thieves. The chapter ends here. I hope, learners, this was fruitful for you. Thank you.